username. I got lots of information. I didn't get their password, but I got everything else. So it was actually kind of null and void anyway. But this kind of gave me a bit of way why I want to talk about this, because we as security training is usually based on a bit of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We like to scare our users into not clicking on links and the impact of doing it. Where we should move away from that, moving on, upskilling our users and giving them the skills and giving them the ability to make those choices and focusing on their personal lives, not just work. Right, this is the important thing. If you take away, I was talking about this earlier on, if you take away the corporate side of security and then make people think about how they're personally impacted when something happens, they completely change their behaviours, right? Because they're suddenly going, well, okay, I don't want to rob my bank or steal my data or use my data in a certain way or steal my identity. But they don't really care if the systems at work happen because it's work, right? It's like we've got IT, we've got security, we've got response, we've got insurance, it doesn't really matter. Whereas actually, on that level, it's slightly different. So that's why I want to talk about it. And training is like important to deal with these kind of things we talk about on a regular basis, right? So there was this like maturity model that Sam's put together, which I kind of like. It's quite interesting because most companies kind of basically spend their time here, right? They focus on the compliance training. We've got to do our tick box exercise for the year, so we can go to the board and say we've done security awareness training, we can move on, we don't have to focus on that anymore. We've trained 3,000 people, we've given them an hour's worth of training. Amazing, good job. We won't get social engineered ever again. Right? And so we never really focus on people may focus on the awareness and behavioural change, but I kind of written a paper, I haven't released it yet, but I've written a paper based on like 6-7 years of research and speaking to companies and looking at what happens and kind of looking at how users can change. And this kind of basically is it, right? And this is a kind of weird kind of diagram of how it works, right? But if you think about, you probably can't read this at the back, can you? Unless you've got amazing eyesight, then you should just come up here. Amazing. Right, so you look at people that are unaware. So you have unconscious incompetence. That's basically where our users start pretty much and mostly end up as well, actually. They have unconscious incompetence because they don't know what they're doing. Then you have people that are aware. So they have an understanding, they have a basic knowledge, right? They don't apply that knowledge, but they are aware something bad is going to happen. Then you have the adoption stage, where people have taken their awareness and they're actually implementing what they're doing. So they have positive perception towards it. Because if you want to adopt something, you have to believe in it, right? If I tell you who smokes here? 2 people, right? Okay, so we know smoking is bad, right? So every time you open up a packet of cigarettes, you're told you're going to die, right? But we still smoke, right? I do it because I'm a social engineer, and that's the only way I can get to buildings these days, right? Smokers love company, right? Because we're a dying breed, literally, right? But we still know it's bad, but yet we still do it, right? So the training that the government's put in place has worked a lot because people are moving to vaping or they're giving up altogether. But the point is that people still know it's bad, and they still just go, well, I'm not going to positively make a change, so no action happens. We just keep doing what we're doing, right? And it's the same with most things. Bad habits. Everyone has bad habits, okay? And to change that, you have to adopt. You have to make a conscious change, aware that what you're doing is bad, and you have to make a conscious decision to change what you're doing. It's a psychological thing, right? So once you've got the adoption stage, then you've got the implementation stage. So we're championing those behaviours, and then we've got safe behaviours. That's where we want people to move towards, the top right. So there's all these things that you can do to do that, right? So it's not just annual tick box compliance, right? That's it. Annual tick box compliance, you're there, right? Once a year, done. Off you go, right? You get people to aware stage. And then actually probably 3 months later, they've forgotten about it and they're back down to unaware and positive. So there's a range of things that you can do to kind of change that. You can focus on specialist security. So actually the journey really is focusing in on certain skill sets you want to change as a business. So don't change everything, because you can't change everything, right? Focus in on 1 or 2 small things that have the biggest impact, right? So I've done this before and said, like, if you give people a list of 5 things they can do, right? That so multi-factor, don't reuse passwords. If you do, you can't prevent people clicking on phishing emails, but actually, if you suspect something suspicious, report it quickly, and these are the people you report it to. So you can't stop this from happening. What you can do is reduce the time an attacker has on your systems, or an attacker has to access those kind of mailboxes, where it may be, right? And again, the biggest impact to change is actually creating people that buy into security, actually are interested in it to some degree, and put them in the departments. So actually have someone in finance that's interested in security, wants to champion it, have someone in operations, have someone in customer services, or whatever department it is, have one person that's the champion. So they can take your message and feed it down to the department to stuff that's relevant. So they're the eyes and the ears of your business. Because actually, if you look at most companies, they have, like thousands of employees. They have maybe hundreds of people in IT, and they have 2 people in security in that kind of ratio. So we've got 2 people just focusing on security, 3 people, maybe more in a bigger company, who are looking after everything. So actually, we're already at a disadvantage. We have to get the business to be part of that function as well. Right? That's what we're trying to talk about in a kind of roundabout way. And why should we do this? We should, Bill, I'm going to run out of time soon, but we should be doing assessments, we should be designing stuff, we should be educating, reinforcing. These are things that we should be doing, but what we really do is we just educate and we kind of try and reinforce. People that did the training, hands up again so I can see you. So what's your method for reinforcement, out of interest? You've done some training, right? You've done your annual or 6-month deal, however. How do you reinforce it? What's your kind of method for doing that?
If they fail that, they then resubscribe to the follow-up training.
Okay. Does that change their behaviours, or does that just make sure they just pass it so they can do what they already were doing before?
I mean, we retest them again, and they never fail twice. So, I mean,
it's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's not a criticism. It's a good way of doing it. But what we do is we go, right, so phishing emails, right, do the phishing simulation again, do the training again, and then we'll phish you again in the future so you don't pass it, but you don't fail it, right? And that's what we always do. We go, right, we're doing the same things to kind of fix the problem. We should be doing saying, well, actually, what other skills can we build into that, around that they can identify and report and all that kind of stuff. So we, as an industry, we say, these are the prescriptive things that we do as a security professional to stop you from getting phished. But we also don't go into the reasons behind the psychology reasons why phishing works, and some of the basic skill sets to circumvent that, if that makes sense.
well, I mean, in parallel to that, we developed a tool in Outlook that is deployed across the devices. So we discovered that a lot of phishing emails aren't actually picked up on their desktop clients.
Yeah.
They're picked up in the mobile clients. And so that is now deployed in their mobile clients as well. So we found that through those discussions and those follow-ups.
Brilliant.
It's like, what was your user interface when you came through? Right, it was this from your Android phone. So we need to go there. We need to go where they were actually dealing with their work.
Excellent. Love that. That's brilliant. Any other examples? Yeah.
So one thing that I'm building upon is, from a development point of view, whenever we go across our scripting and all that box, and it's like, well, what harm can that do? Well, when you start looking at real world examples, the other way across that scripting resulted in, I don't know, a crypto miner, and the company lost X amount. So start providing real world examples to reinforce why it's bad, and it shows that it can and has happened before and has negative impact.
Yeah, and that's important, right? And I think this is trying to reinforce the message, right? There's not it's not a right way of doing this. It's about understanding your company culture, understanding how you do things, and trying to reinforce it that way, right? And kind of like, yeah. So I'm going to skip over this because I'm really going to run out of time, right? But when we're trying to look at these, we're trying to look at, okay, how do we stop these things? It's not just about training, it's about actually, so who actually reads their security policies here, apart from the people that wrote it, right? Brilliant. Okay, because if we write it, you're going to read it, right? We talked about this earlier, right? Okay, and then actually, who thinks their users reads their policies? The one person who really believes their policy is relevant, right? That's good, and it's good. When I write policies to companies, I hope they read them. But I know in reality in the hearts that most people look at it and go, yeah, scroll to the bottom, accept, right? And I can then get on with my job. That's the problem, because it's relevant, right? So actually, if you go around your organisation and go, show me where the information security policy is, and they go, what's that? Okay, where's that? And we all know that's going to happen, right? So again, it's that people don't understand their responsibilities. We don't educate people on what their responsibilities are as an organisation. We don't know where critical data is. When we do social engineering simulations, we can test our business and how effective it is. We do all these kind of crazy things, right? Like actually, as part of this is like the supply chain. Everyone talks about supply chain being a risk, but actually, how do we kind of, we educate people on like the best practice? So if your supplier calls up your finance department tries to change invoice details, do they actually follow the process that we all say? Don't implement that, call back the supplier, the number you have, and check they actually called you in the first place. Actually, most people do follow that. There's always one or two people that don't know that process because they joined a company and they're not inducted in that process because they missed that window of training, all that kind of stuff. So there's always things that happen, right? I have got this video which shows you how easy it is to give away details. If anyone actually hasn't seen this, but the sound isn't working for my laptop. I wonder if I muted it. Hang on. Oh, look! There you go. Can you hear that or not? Does that sound over there? Amazing sound.
Okay, Carly, are you ready for information on Dane yet? Yes, ma'am. Mother's maiden name is Carly Smith. Don't forget that police call. What's the name? Nicola. Your date of birth, 7th of May. Lives at 38A. Just pick up a second. 2 children, age 4 and 6. Previous address.
Yeah, got it. Damien is 26 and fitness instructor. We're in to UCL, after went to South Kent College, psychology with Great Ormond Street. Yeah, we know everything about you, Martin. Thank you.
So, like, even something simple like that, like getting users to like a page, right? Apps, malicious apps. It's just amazing. Amazing. I wish the sound was a bit louder, but anyway, I could play my social engineering call again. Maybe I might. Have I got time for that or not? Am I a couple of minutes? I'll play that in a second. Can we turn the sound up? Is that possible? How do we get these speakers to play louder? These ones. How's it doing that? Is that like a, okay, amazing. Magic. Science.
The TV. Maybe try the TV remote.
Where's that? Where is it? Is it on the top? It's not on there, I can't see it. Is this it here? No. Someone, we've lost it down the back of the couch. That's what's happened. Right, it's gone. Okay, don't worry. I'll go back to social engineering in a second. So we like. I'll kind of skip over this, right? But like also so this is quite interesting. So I did basically I spent the last year and a half training users on OPSEC, right? And I did a talk on OPSEC like a while back, right here, like March or something, was it? I don't know. And so I've been actually training users in OPSEC and kind of, it's actually working, believe it or not, right? So like getting people to create compartments and getting people to like separate their email address, have like 3 or 4 email addresses, stuff that we do on a regular basis, unless you're me, then you're all over social media, then we have literally no OPSEC anymore. But, right, it's like, literally, you can actually really get effectiveness by going back to kind of security operational basics, like really simple things like just don't use your same email address for everything, don't reuse your passwords, like literally have like 2 password managers, not just one, so if one gets compromised you've got a backup and all this kind of stuff, right? All these kind of things that you talk about. You can get users doing this because actually they understand this is actually protecting them at home and actually therefore reducing the risk at work. It's actually amazing. And actually, seriously, I've got people that have literally 0 technical skills actually doing this stuff, right? And I'm thinking like, that's the way forward. It's like trying to get really kind of sound, simple principles across to people and making it work, right? And it's things like, you know, like perform like a risk assessment. I've had like people come back and said, I did my personal risk assessment. I was like, you what? Like, they actually went and actually wrote down and answered all these questions and came back and went, right, so I know where my information is now. I now know all this other stuff. I know, you know, what form it's in. I've done this. And this is someone who works in like admin or receptionists and things like that. It's like really PAs, not the technical people. And so we all kind of assume, as everyone said, like, you know, negligent or useless. What was the term you used for users again? Sorry, useless. What was it? Something like that, right? Yeah, that was it. Yeah, right. Yeah, they don't have a clue. Well, actually, if you give them the tools, actually, like most people, they will apply it because they care about their own data. They care about what they're doing, right? I think this is the kind of message we kind of miss, right? And it's like, so for you guys, right, not the general people, right? Everyone talks about trust. Everyone's heard of trust but verify, right? Yeah. Okay, good. I actually kind of say we trust our natural instincts. You know, we social media taught us to trust, and we lost our natural instincts. You know, actually, I have another method. It's like zero trust, right? We should have a zero trust mechanism for security people, right? Because actually, social engineering is so easy. to trick people based on some of the stuff I've talked about before. But actually, we should kind of adopt zero trust and actually bring people into a circle of trust once we've verified, right? And it's like there's things that we ask for, right? And I did a conference. I talked about this. I actually had a room of like 50 social engineers. We all talked about this kind of stuff, how that social engineers can easily be social engineered because there's overconfidence, right? And it's kind of a crazy thing to think about that we do that for a living, but then we're still susceptible because we're human, we're fallible, we can make mistakes. So that was really it. And by the way, this is by the far my favourite ever phishing on social media, right? This is amazing, right? I actually looked at this and went, this is amazing, right? This is like, load out image, and you click on the image, and it asks you to prompt for your password. You enter your password, and it's not really unblur at all. It's amazing. I felt, yes. So that really worked, and it's just playing on human nature, and it's really bad. But it actually got like 16,000 people saying, "Why can't I unlock the image?" Which kind of showed the effectiveness, which is dreadful. Anyway, that was me. I will go back to my social engineering call. Oh no, I won't, because it won't have to do that. But have I got time to play it or not? I mean, you've heard it maybe, but I think it shows.
Just while you're doing that, can we change mics? Because I don't think they... Sorry, I didn't want to stop Stu mid-floor changes.
Right, will this work?
Oh, so that works.
Hello, Amy.
In what department?
Social media, copy, guest marketing.
Okay, come from me. Hi, Charlotte speaking.
Oh, it's not for Amy, she's around.
Amy?
Today, but have I got these right department?
Oh, no problem. I can pass you over. She's just sitting next to me.
Okay, well, maybe you can help. It's absolutely fine.
Not on the same team, so I'll just transfer you over if that's alright.
That's absolutely fine.
Great, thanks.
So she was targeted straight afterwards.
Oh. Hi.
Hey, is that Amy?
Yes, speaking.
Amy, it's John from First Choice IT. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks.
Yeah, good. Just doing a bit of database work at the moment with you guys. Just checking some of that kind of stuff. Just want to double check. Have you had any issues logging in today at all?
No, no issues.
No issues. Okay, fantastic. When did you last log in today?
Sorry?
When did you last log in today? Were you logged in this morning?
Sorry?
Were you logged in this morning? Were you logged in? Time to log in today?
Twice on fine.
Nice. Okay, fantastic. And can I confirm your email address just so I can check the system to check if you've got any issues with the database? Okay. What's your Windows username? Your email address is different, isn't it? So fantastic. And have you changed your password in the last 30 days at all? First day, okay. Okay, can you confirm the length of your password to me, please, as well, just so we check? Yes, please. 8 characters. How many of those are uppercase? No. Okay, fantastic. Any numbers at all in there?
Yeah.
How many numbers? So I can check. 2 numbers. Fantastic. Okay, let me just check. And you're logged in at the moment, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, I can't see that. Okay, that's fantastic. Can you confirm what your password is, just so I can check the system, please? It's absolutely fine. We've got authorization from the office, so it's absolutely fine. Say again, sorry? I'll just double check for you, but that's absolutely fine. Thank you for your time. Thank you. Cheers. Bye.
So on that final note, 2 minutes or whatever it was, password, username, email address, right? And that was it. And actually, I do it quite frequently. And most people go, as Lloyd was going to say, "What's your password, bro?" Right? But like literally, it's literally that simple. Like you can literally go around an organisation and just literally ask for their password if you've got a decent pretext, and probably about 7 to 10% of people will give you their password, right? But if you can go around with even better pretext and all the trust mechanisms you've built up as part of that, you probably raise that to 20% of people, which you only need one, right? And that's the whole problem here. So I lovely note while my microphone's cutting out in and out. Any questions? I don't know. We do it from the app or not? Yes. Do you want to, oh, yeah, go on. In what way? In terms of?
So when you do the education piece,
Yeah.
I don't care if people ask me, you can have that one up to high.
Yeah, so someone always has something to hide, right? It's not like they're hiding their porn history or anything like that, right? It's more along the lines of that there's going to be some red line somewhere. I'm going to stand over here. I don't know if it's this microphone. Is it this mic? Weird. But there's usually a red line somewhere. So it's understanding what their red line is. So if I said, well, you've got nothing to hide, but you probably don't want me in your bank or your bank account, raiding your bank account at some point, or whatever it may be. So there's going to be some red line, right? Everyone's got a line that they don't want someone else to cross. So it might not be you, it might be your wife, right? Or it might be your partner or your children or something like that. You know, there's going to be something that they don't want people to know about, right? So you just kind of just say to them, look, there is always going to be something, and it's always best practice is to protect whatever it is you care about first, and then work out from there, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question? There was another question somewhere. Was someone stretching?
The question I have is a little bit of a Trojan horse. The 52% of data breaches the result of human error and system glitches?
Yes.
You got that from the IBM Ponemon cost of the data breach report?
I got it from, yes, I got the IBM one, and also from 3 other sources as well that I can't remember off the top of my head. There was so there is a kind of, it's an aggregation of about 3 or 4 reports.
I'm working with researchers from Universities of Glasgow and Edinburgh to go over IBM Ponemons and Verizon data, and the numbers are a lot higher than 52%.
Wouldn't surprise me. Yeah.
If you use the industry standard definition for human error used in accident reporting, we are trying to define just how close to 90% that number is. And we're gathering data from around the world. So 52% is staggeringly high. Our research is coming out that's going to show it is a lot higher than that.
I'd love to see that, because that would surprise me, actually.
Coming out soon.
92%, you're saying?
We've confirmed it's over 80. We're trying to figure out how close to 90 it is.
So if you look at that as a statistic with this hitting sound, I'm just going to just talk. There, is that better? Can you hear me? Okay, so I'll do that. Right. So if you look at even at 52%, okay, if you look at those figures, that's still staggeringly high, but it's systematic of our industry, right? And the fact that we need to spend a lot more time educating people, right? So yes, we can have the blinky boxes. Wow, I'm breaking everything. I'm breaking everything. I've got you on the directional one. Great, there you go. That's much better. See, I feel better now talking like this, right? So if you look at like the 90%, it's systematic. We're having issues with how we're addressing training, right? And I'm not just talking about training, about everything. We can have blinky boxes, we can have AI on the blockchain, or wherever we want to have it, right? We can have the best technology, and that's great to support what we're doing, right? As an industry, and I'm way over, so I'm making this guy late, so I'm not going to talk much longer. But right, but this is the problem that we have, right? And so we've got to work in harmony with our people, okay? Get them doing better at reporting, get them to understand their responsibilities, get them engaging with security. We've got to have the tools to enable them to have the tools so they know how to report this stuff, and then we've got to protect them as the last line. We should be putting our people as the people are the last line of defence, right? But actually we're the first line at the same time, because as soon as something goes through your tools, you have to rely on your people to not interact with it, right? So our tools have failed at that point. So now it's about how do people then react to it, and that's kind of my finishing point, because I know this guy's got some great stuff to talk about. So I'd like to say thank you for letting me speak 3 times and staying awake. So thank you very much. And have a good
So guys, it's a real pleasure to have Ed here, by the way. He's travelled up from London, a chaotic journey today.
Okay.
I'm going to take your seat.
Straight on.
I know the mics aren't great, sorry guys.
Hello, and thank you for having me. It has been an arduous journey to get here today. Not quite from London. London apparently would have been even worse. From just north of Birmingham, which I should have got here about 2 o'clock and ended up getting here about 4:30 because every train was just buggered. I normally come with a disclaimer because I swear a lot. I am from Birmingham. I do swear. I know you're Scottish, but I really swear. I'm going to try my best not to. I've got no slides. I would have said I was going to prepare some slides, but I don't like them anyway. I'll give you a bit of background about me. I've not been on certain podcasts. I've not been invited, despite apparently being quite good in this space.
I was going to say, you get invited to the podcast, right?
Yeah, get invited to it. Yeah, afterthought. Nice. Thanks, mate. Yeah, we should hook up. I've had a various set of roles like most people my age. I know I look 20 odd, but I'm not. I'm 43. I tripped and fell into security at some point, having worked in accounts originally for Dillon's the bookstore, who went bust. Then I worked in accounts for Ansell's the brewery, who went bust. Then I got a job on the help desk for Bass the brewery, who went bust. And then I got a job doing change management, then into risk management, and then security management for Fujitsu, who sadly didn't go bust. Is anyone here from Fujitsu? Awesome. And that was on a government contract for HMRC, lived through the whole disk loss. Does anyone know about the disk loss, or maybe not loss at HMRC from 2007 that people still remind you about? Oh, geez, that was painful. And then decided that wasn't bad enough, so I went and worked for HMRC, and I was head of cyber there for 8 years, which literally was a team of one, building up into a team that was many, many people who've done some really quite good stuff since. 8 years as a civil servant, was just due the lobotomy, so I decided I worked for the tax man, I'm not evil enough, so I became a vendor, which made me a proper arsehole. I worked as a vendor for a year, didn't get paid for 2 months, then decided to set up on my own and become a vendor at the same time, so even better still. We had the awards ceremony here, not here, obviously literally here, but just down the road yesterday, so we've got any award winners in from last night? I know we've got one. Yes, hi. I've got 3, so fuck you. No, seriously, I have. I don't like to talk about it unless you're on Facebook with me, in which case I fucking spam the fuck out of it. Stu stolen most of my material because we had a chat beforehand. Fucking social engineers. No, not at all. I'll do it on your podcast. I'll talk a little bit around kind of my experience. So although I'm one of those evil vendor type people nowadays-ish sort of kind of thing, and a consultant, I've lived at the front line quite seriously for a number of years, and I've got a lot of battle scars from getting it wrong as much as I've got it right, and I think that's probably the best way to learn. So to give you a little bit of a flavour around kind of my experience in security and what I see, some of the common pitfalls, some of which Stu has spoken about. I'm sure Jenny will go into some of them wider as well. First of all, kind of if you work in security and you spend time looking at the press in any way, shape or form or anything, it just seems like we live in Hackmageddon. The whole world is going to end, everyone's going to get hacked, we're all going to die, no data is sacred, there's just no point doing anything. Most of it couldn't be further from the truth. Everything is a super sophisticated attack, everything is an APT, which 99% of people who use the acronym APT get completely wrong. Advanced persistent threat. Here's a really simple one. Advanced persistent threat, which everyone says is nation state. May be nation state, may not be nation state. If you reverse it, it becomes really simple. In simple terms, everything is a threat. If you recognise that a threat keeps coming back, like a child that wants something, so anyone got children? Yeah, when your child wants something, are they persistent? Fuck me, are they persistent? Daddy, can I have this? 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 No, Daddy's not going to work. Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, can I have this? Mommy, no, it's not going to work. Nanny, can I? Yeah, Nanny's going to give me the juice. Yeah. Persistence. I'm going to keep coming back until I get what I want. If you can recognise persistence of a threat, you can start to understand the parameters of that threat and start to measure their capability. How quick they stand up their infrastructure. How sophisticated are their phishing emails, for example? You know, I'm not going to send you a HMRC phishing email and ask you for dollars, because HMRC tends to be UK-centric and deals in pounds, unless you're a large company like Amazon, in which case we don't deal in any money whatsoever. Other tax avoiders are available. I think I saw a Starbucks down the road. If you can measure their capability, how much they move from malware 1 to 1.1 and all that good stuff, you can then start to determine how their capability is and whether they are advanced or not, and therefore you get an advanced, persistent threat. It doesn't necessarily mean a nation state. You can be nation state and be shite. You can be nation state and be good. A great example of one of the better nation states on the globe, of which you're probably thinking they're vodka or noodles, one of which was found to be a particular threat because they'd left their webcams on. So when someone traced them all the way back, took shiny pictures of the person at the other end to determine whether they were a vodka drinker or a noodle eater. I won't tell you which one it was or which agency undertook it. You can probably guess. It's not synonymous. The two do not necessarily go together, nor does it mean that everyone is at threat of an advanced persistent threat. The vast majority of stuff out there is rudimentary. It is mass spread. The vast majority of threat is totally avoidable if you do the basics well. We can talk about it as cyber hygiene, because that's a different word than we used to use before, or we can talk about it as basic security. Things like having a policy. Now, we've mentioned policies before. Stu stole my material. He mentioned a few words on this. Policy is generally written by security people for security in an ivory tower that never sees the light of day of a human being that's actually going to read it. Does anyone remember the Nadine Dorries thing? Maybe? Yeah, yes, one. Thank God for that. Shite. As analogies go, it would have been awful. So Nadine Dorries posted on Twitter about sharing passwords, yes? Allowing people to log on as her, or allowing people to use her machine. And what did the InfoSec industry do? They all pointed and went, user, evil, terrible. Do you know what? Your users share their passwords. Deal with it. But it's in the policy. Yes, it's on page 43 of the policy. Page 43 of the policy. Not only is it on page 43, don't get me wrong, there's only 2 people in the world who've got to page 43. The one who wrote it and the poor schmuck who had to proofread it. No one is getting to line 43, let alone page 43. But equally it says, thou shalt not share your password. Why not? At no point did it explain why you shouldn't share your password, nor at any point did it explain what the alternative to sharing your password, which might mean things like delegated authority, allowing someone else to access your mailbox for you, nor how you would actually go about that, which isn't security, that's actually IT. The IT needs to make the delegation of access to that Outlook. Really, really simple, and more simple than me saying, Stu, just sit at my desk and do it, will you? But no, let's blame the user for that. Too often, security has been seen as an ivory tower, looking down like the Eye of Sauron, across and blaming everyone for failing really miserably. Never actually getting down there and recognising its customers. Yes, security has customers, as in every employee that works in the bloody organisation that security works with. But it's okay because we educate them, as Stu has said. Against it in my material. I have no problem with this at all. It's simple. We do that once a year, CBT. Anyone do once a year computer-based training for security awareness? You're all nervous to put your hands up, aren't you? Really are. They're apparently 1 hour long, which we always used to have competitions to see how quickly we could finish it. Do you know what your users do? Because your security education and awareness training, if you do the CBT bollocks, is basically it sits with their diversity training and their health and safety training, you know, because you can't stand on a desk to put your Christmas decorations up anymore because, you know, someone might die if they're an idiot. Along with their, you know, anti-corruption training and things like that, is they literally sit there and go, next, 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 next. And then they have a quiz at the end. Ooh. 10 questions. Ooh. And if you get them wrong, you shouldn't be allowed shoes with laces. And security sits and goes, good job. We raised awareness. No, you just pissed people off. You took them out of their day for about 6 minutes, because that's how long it takes to do it, unless you are seriously particular needs. And you've done nothing but piss people off and raise no awareness whatsoever. Stu's gone into that tenfold. I don't know why I'm pointing at his slides that aren't there. It just says no signal. Which is a little bit like his sound. Ooh, look. If I press up volume, It works. Oh, you're a technological wizard, mate. Too easy. But we do. We do that whole nonsense of that. If you do that CBT once a year stuff, stop. Be disruptive. Call yourself digital. Be disruptive. Don't do it. It's pointless. It's absolutely, absolutely pointless. It's all about corporate security as well. We're trying to teach people how to be good with corporate security. You've got a load of customer data. Should you spaff it across the internet or look after it? Ooh. No, look after it. Yay! I win a prize. It's completely pointless. Teach them to protect themselves because they care. You teach them about corporate security, they'll go, well, that's your job, isn't it? And that's why we have all these controls in place that stop me doing my job and means that I have to send all my work home. What? You send your work home? Yes, your users send their work home as well. Because your security is too intrusive, that means they just send it home instead because they can do it on their home computer because they've got all the tools they want to actually do anything with it, which generally involves a spreadsheet. And then send it back into work and start doing it again. Because your security is not in line with the people who actually need to embrace it and use it, and you're being too restrictive. And if you stop people from doing something, again, if you've got children, and you tell them not to do something, they will find a way to do it. Guess what? Your users are like children. You should treat them like children and spank them. No. And understand and empathize with them and talk to them. Oh, God, talking to users. Then you'll get an idea about how technologically inept some of them are, and how technologically good some of them are, how ignorant some of them are. And ignorant's not a bad word. Everyone looks at ignorant like it's something bad, and it's a bad comment, and you're kind of picking on people, but it's not. It just means they don't know. And the reason they don't know is because you don't engage with them on a human level, and you don't engage with them in the way that they should know. But even then, we've got policies that are completely pointless, and no one reads, and no one understands, and no one adheres to. And we do training that no one really bothers with in any way, shape or form, and are completely irrelevant. But that's okay, because we've got technological controls, because let's face it, people, process and technology, let's focus on technology. By the way, if anyone uses a bank, which you all do, they all focus on technology, which is why they keep having incidents that you've never heard of. Because no one ever, with GDPR and the stipulation that you must report any data breach, personal data breach, that could result in a risk to the rights and freedoms of the data subject, you must report it. And if you don't and no one finds out about it, you won't get fined. So no one will do that. And no one has ever done that in the last 20 years from the Data Protection Act either. There is no correlation whatsoever between reporting something to the ICO and being fined and not reporting something and not being fined. I am not saying that's a good thing to do. I'm just saying there's reality, and then there's a pipe dream where everything is rosy and we've all done GDPR properly and we all have records of processing activities and we understand where our data is, which is on your users' home computers and various other guises. And we all have appropriate technical controls like security. Oh no, that doesn't work, does it? Or policies. Oh yeah, that doesn't work. We've got firewalls. Has anyone here ever worked in government? Me? Oh, few. So in government we had firewalls, didn't we? We had dual pair firewalls. We had dual pair firewalls from different vendors in case one of them had a vulnerability, the other one wouldn't. They had any rules on them, but there might be a vulnerability on one of them. Here's a simple question to you. How many people here have got a firewall at work? Yeah? How many people looked at their firewall rules in the last 12 months? Wow. Do you know what? I've never seen 5 hands before at that question. That's actually impressive. If you don't know what rules are on your firewalls, how do you know what's coming in and out of your network? Remember WannaCry and the whole, one rule on a firewall. One rule. Why are you accepting SMB traffic from the internet? For what reason? Because it's easier to do any. But that's not security's problem, because security is not involved in the change process. Everyone heard of ITIL? Yeah, ITIL. Bloody lovely ITIL. No one does ITIL by the book, same as no one does security by the book. ITIL has a risk aspect to it that we always risk assess a change. Of course we do. And what we do is we risk assess whether it's going to break a live service. Because if it breaks a live service, users go, IT gets a kicking. Boom. We don't actually look as to whether it was the right change to make. Because I'm sure if someone came to you and said, oh, our external firewall, yeah, we're going to put any on it. And you'll probably go, that doesn't sound like the greatest idea I've ever heard of. Can you explain to me what you're trying to achieve? Yeah, we want to get malware on the estate. Fair dues, carry on. But we're not engaged in that change process because security sits over here and IT sits over here, and ITIL is some pipe dream that someone dreamed of, and we'll have experts in it, and we do change management and all that rubbish, and the two will never join up. Similar to when we say kind of, we've got DevOps. There's two distinct flavors of DevOps. There's DevOps, the buzzword. I've got a development team. I've got an operations team. DevOps. And then we've got teams that actually work together and collaborate and understand and maybe talk to each other once in a while and understand how what they do might impact on someone else and how they need them on board to help them get their changes through. And they understand how each other has different driving parameters that might make their lives easier and harder, and they start to build a culture. Most of DevOps is driven from CIOs and the like who may sit in the buzzword camp. Some DevOps is in the camp where they actually work together. Security sits over here somewhere. And you've got digital teams over here talking about containers. And you've got security guys over here thinking Tupperware. Do you know what a chocolatey server is? Yeah, it's the vending machine. Oh, yeah. But equally, they see security as some kind of roadblock, something I have to get through. Those arseholes who don't understand what I'm talking about chef and puppet, Kubernetes, and yeah. And they're going, what about the risk? And I say, can you articulate the risk? And security says, not really, because I don't understand the word you said. But in a very similar way to building a DevOps culture, that you need to get different teams to actually work together and start to collaborate and understand each other and build relationships. You need to pull these retards in from security. Oh, no, this is not a DevOps audience, is it? You need to bring those sterling people from security into that conversation as well. I usually do DevOps meetings and I take the piss out of security for that very reason. But you talk different languages. And we need to bring those languages together. It's similar to kind of when you say they're going to build that culture. My favourite one, which is a HMRC story, which is they decided across HMRC that they were going to build a culture from the ground up. They'd been to the executive committee, and these are the words they thought of that matched the culture. But now we want to build it from the ground up. It's like, so you've come up with a bunch of words for culture right at the top level, and then you're going to the bottom to say, do you agree with our words? Bottom up. Culture is just about building people and getting them to talk to each other. Hello, I work in digital. What do you do? Networks? Oh, super. You're the arsehole who won't put my change through, aren't you? Maybe we should talk and have a coffee. Yeah, build a culture. But that also brings about an understanding of assets. How many people get involved in asset management? So I presume this is a predominant security audience. How many people get involved in asset management? Okay, we're getting close to double figures. If you don't understand what assets you own, how can you possibly understand the health of those assets and what potential risks you have across your estate because you don't understand those assets? But it's all right because you've got firewalls at the front that have got fuck knows what rules on them. And assets behind them then that you may or may not know what they are and what vulnerabilities they have and where they sit within your architectural stack. Do you all employ a tiered architecture? Or not know? Hopefully you know. Hopefully your internet-facing assets that you are ideally aware of in front of the firewall, that ideally you know what rules are on it. You've got a vague idea kind of what risks, and you've not put your data in that internet-facing one, otherwise you may as well call yourself TalkTalk. There is no risk whatsoever in putting your data right next to the internet. You may as well just put it on the internet. Or on the dark web, or as we call it, the internet. How many people have an idea how many users they've got across their systems? Wow. 5. Sit. Oh, no. He's doing the camera. Back to 5 again. So we don't understand what assets we got. We don't understand what users we got. What about the privileges of those users? Do they match what jobs they do? So you know when someone moves job from payroll, where I've got access to all your payroll data, to marketing, do I still have access to payroll? Whose job is it to remove my access to payroll? Is that security's job? Is it IT's job? Is it the importing manager? Is it the exporting manager? Does that actually happen? Do you care? Probably should. So imagine that if we don't understand what rules are on our firewall, we don't understand what architecture looks like, we don't understand our assets, we don't understand our users. Can you see how this goes swimmingly? What about administrators? Do your administrators have internet access? Anyone know? One. Wowzers. There is no problem whatsoever with having full admin privileges and internet access. None whatsoever. Especially if you understand all the rules on your firewall. But it's okay because we've got policy. Oh, shit. Can you see how the majority of issues that organizations face do not really require advanced, persistent threats? They just require rudimentary shit spaffed across the internet, because guess what? It works. At the other end of every cyber attack that has ever happened and will ever happen for a very, very, very long time, unless we talk about AI properly, not machine learning, which is technically AI, but another level of AI that actually replaces the human aspect of it. So expert systems and deductive reasoning and inferences and all that good stuff, all the stuff that's not on offer today. There is a human being at the end of that, and do you know what human beings do? They like easy. Because easy is cost effective. It takes a lot of money to develop something, to develop some new IP, to develop a new invention, to develop a 0 day and research it and how to exploit it, and then how to make lateral movement off the back of that and how to craft. Social engineering is very easy. It can also be very difficult and very well crafted to get into the right organization. The best one I've ever heard of, which I think even the best security person in the world will fall. So a particular nation state, vodka noodles, was after a particular entity and was after the CEO. And they had tried everything possible to get the CEO and had failed at every course. So they did their research. So again, back to those with parents, because it's relevant to the story. I do go off on tangents. People with children, what happens in roughly the first week of September on Facebook? People go back to school, and what do mums and dads do when their children go back to school? They take photos of uniforms, and what do they do with those photos of uniforms? They post them on Facebook. You've just told me where your child goes to school. So what they did was they did a very basic check on Facebook and found where the CEO's children went to school, and they hacked the school, and they sent an email from the school, genuinely from the school, from the headmaster of the school to the CEO, saying, little Johnny's been in an accident. Oh. It's okay, he's fine, here's attached the accident report. Tell me anyone who's not clicking on that. Who's not opening that attachment? Boom, done, thank you. All because underneath that, which they were good at stopping the basic social engineering aspect, was no understanding of firewalls, assets, users, privileges, anything, data, gone. 1.5 trillion, most of which is done through rudimentary attacks, not what you'll believe in the press, super sophisticated next 5th generation attacks. 5th generation, which means you need a 6th generation firewall. Your 6th generation firewall comes with a tease made for those long nights in a data center when you're trying to figure out what the fuck went wrong. Do you know what went wrong? All the shit in front of the fucking 6th generation firewall and all the stuff the other side of it. And the rules on the 6th generation firewall that basically said, let anything through. We have IPS systems, intrusion prevention, that no one turns on because it might stop legitimate traffic, because we've no idea what legitimate traffic looks like. So we just put them in detect mode, which means they just alert and they go off to a security team in the SOC. Or it might be a SIC, because yours is intelligence-driven. Or ours in HMRC was a cybersecurity command center. They're all a fucking sock. But that security team gets these alerts from the IDS system, which is great. They all look malicious, and so does your legitimate traffic. So I'm just going to wade through false positives for 4 or 5 days, getting alert fatigue, trying to figure out what the hell went anywhere. And that legitimate traffic that's triggering that IDS rule, that legitimate IDS rule, I'm just going to switch it off because it's noisy. That rule that actually is there for a reason, rather than go back and fix the traffic that looks malicious because it's just been put together over years and has been through that ITIL change system that has nothing to do with security. So when you kind of put all these things together, you can kind of understand how most organizations across this planet are ready-made headline news. You also can hopefully understand, unlike, say, maybe the InfoSec, where you finish this talk and you go, oh yeah, that's lots of bad stuff. I might check my firewall rules. Ooh, shiny, flashy boxes. Ooh, it's got AI. Ooh, yeah, that's definitely going to solve all my problems. While we're there, just 2 little aspects on AI. So machine learning is AI. It was machine learning, now it's AI, because marketing were allowed to do that. There's 2 different aspects of it. Apparently the UK is at the forefront of AI. All the UK's, we've just about to send a trade delegation over to the US to basically sell our AI, because we're right at the forefront of it. And it's all what's known as non-symbolic AI. It's basically machine learning. There's 2 ways to look at the difference between non-symbolic and symbolic AI. Non-symbolic AI is like a clairvoyant. Machine learning is like a clairvoyant. It may or may not be wrong. You've got absolutely no chance in hell of explaining the answer it's come up with. Symbolic AI is like Sherlock Holmes, where it works through inferences and confidence of inferences through data and facts to be able to decide what a human being would do with the facts presented to them at that point in time. In other words, it's like the exam question. What is 4 billion divided by 6 times by 7 times by with the square root of whatever and something. Show your workings out. And some kid goes, 7. And some kid writes 4 pages of A4 with working out and reaches 7. At least with that one, you understand how the hell they got here. This card over here, it's either Rain Man or just going, fuck that, 7. Machine learning, expert systems. Non-symbolic, symbolic. Inductive reasoning, deductive reasoning. Don't believe the hype. If you want to play with AI, machine learning, just go to Jupyter. It's all on GitHub. You can play with your own. You still won't be able to explain the results, but good luck. That's why, like, Watson's going to predict that I've got cancer. Yeah, I smoke. I've probably got cancer. It's a risk-based decision. Final one. I don't know what time it is. Yeah, it's about then. He overran. Bastard. Can I come on your podcast? I promise not to swear much. Awesome. Can I say cunt? Awesome. I'm from Birmingham, sorry. I just don't have the really retarded accent. Sometimes I do. It's true. I always get called Black Country. It's really, really easy to tell the difference. If you're from Birmingham, you say like, all right, I'm going. In the Black Country, you say, can I come too? Sorry, it's a Birmingham joke. You're all from Scotland. Don't ask any questions, I won't understand a fucking word. Whoa! One bloke clapping at the back, he's English. Lynch him. My name's Edward McTucker, by the way. Risk management. How many people do risk management? Not many of you. Fucking hell. Seriously? Risk management. How many of you do kind of a risk assessment on a project? Maybe a penetration test, which is actually a vulnerability assessment because you're not actually penetrating anything. Do that kind of stuff. How many of you do fuck all with it afterwards? Yeah, all of it. Very few people actually do risk management. Risk management requires an active monitoring of every parameter that makes up that threat. Threat actor, human. Yeah, you won't do the attribution stuff, which makes that hackback stuff absolute bollocks. Never going to happen unless you're GCHQ, in which case they've already hacked forth, not back. Stroke, vodka, noodles, Big Macs. Yeah, certainly are, mate. Threat actor, threats, vulnerabilities, exploits, likelihood, impacts, all that stuff. All of these things are constantly changing. Unless you're measuring in any way the constant changing flow of those, you're not doing risk management. What you're doing is a point-in-time risk assessment and then guessing that might be the best mitigation. Which I'm not being funny. If you've got expired SSL certificates and you get a new one, yeah, that's probably a good thing to do. But how do you know they actually work? Unless you're measuring all of these different things and then understanding the impact of all these mitigations that you're putting in place to understand whether they work or not, you're not doing risk management. But it's okay, because we've got policies and we've got firewalls and we've got... we're all fucked. Which basically means that rather than spending money on technology, we really need to focus on people and processes. And we need to focus on things that are going to get us quick wins and breathing space. One of the obvious things there is your external firewalls. Start with your external firewalls, give yourself breathing space. Oh, we've got a 0-day vulnerability in an asset that's about 7 tiers down in the architecture. And we've got a level 5 vulnerability in one that's internet facing. Guess which one I'm going to focus on? The one that's right by the internet, not the one that, frankly, if they're that far in, they're either an employee or I'm proper screwed. Yeah, focus on that one. Pragmatic understanding of where your assets are, what their value is, and just starting to give yourself breathing space. It is a mammoth task. The reason why it's a mammoth task is because we've been doing the basics of security wrong for so many years. We've been doing them as tick box exercises, like computer-based training. It doesn't work. Or policies that have no relevance whatsoever, are read by no one, understood by no one, and policed by 0 people. We have to start and give ourselves breathing space, because you've got to tear back all of that crap. And actually, if you're going through any kind of transformation program, which everyone is, which now has the word digital at the front, whereas it used to be business change, now it's digital transformation, I don't mind. Use that to your advantage. So maybe look at those firewall rules and say, maybe we should just go back to necessary ports and protocols anyway, if we have a vague idea what they might look like. Or some kind of asset management, or asset inventory, or user access. And all of those different things that can make life easier for us. Because without that, we continue to be easy targets. And that's not because attacks are getting more and more and more and more and more sophisticated. Technology got more sophisticated in the time I've been on this stage, so are attacks. Deal with it. Most attacks are rudimentary because they work. Mostly because we do the basics really, really badly. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Cheers, Ed. It's taken me 38 years to meet somebody as beautifully cynical as I am. I'm going to take a 5-minute break while we get Jenny set up and stuff, so if you want to go to the toilet and grab a drink. So thanks again, Ed. Awesome.
And then there are 4 they talk about the essential people. 4 domestic We were living and breathing stuff. She was show, here's where I get the time. Here's how I can do it. And I told her something to do. What he's doing, something happened. Just like the way it is. That's my you've done enough to get I currently have no license. I love them.
Has anyone got a USB, please? And this is not a trick. I just need to load a presentation. Don't laugh at me. So just let me have a USB and stop being so paranoid. Jesus Christ. Thanks, dude.
I've got loads. Lucky's right. Guys,
you knock yourself out, Stu. It's hard.
You got one?
Oh my God, she's got USB! Shit! Think it's safe yourself!
Is that going up and running, everybody? Does that sound louder than it was? It's alright, I know the mic's a good shot for them. That's louder, isn't it? Is that okay? Is that better? Test, test, test. That's much better, isn't it? That much louder.
There's a health hackathon running in February. When I'll be doing all the all-nighters for my project. What's your project? It's Coffee in the City. Okay. Doing it on the work. Specifically figuring out how to design the first one into the network. Okay. And you're when's the completion date? April 4. I mean, if you're doing all nighters by the time we get to February, I don't know if that's sustainable. It's definitely not sustainable at this point either. Oh, really? So you've bitten off quite a bit. Yeah, it's fun. Well, you've been
'Kay, we'll get going in a couple of minutes, guys. It's okay. Be alright.
Yeah. Whoa.
It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Jenny here. This is awesome to have her speak for us. So I'll let her introduce herself. Over to Jenny. Thank you.
Hiya, you all right? Are we all settled at the back? Hello, hello. Okay, so just to say, I'm looking forward to speaking in Edinburgh. However, I do sometimes speak at schools and things, and they say, can we ever see a proper talk that you do? And obviously not, because they're normally in school. And I said, well, you can watch this one because it's live streamed. And then Ed came on. So, for any members of the Wallasey Primary School who were still live streaming, it wasn't me that swore. I'm so sorry. Okay. I did promise the parents and shit, but now I've swore. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you as well about social engineering, obviously. And I knew that Stu would be on and nick everyone's material, so I thought I'd talk about something slightly different, because I am, for now, a physical penetration specialist. I know, tell me. You know, it's a great opener of parties for people who are not in the security industry. And to be honest, I've done it for years. Basically, ever since I was a kid, if I saw a wall of any kind or description, I was thinking about the ladder. And I reckon over the years, I'm kind of semi-retired now, because I'm a little bit less fit than I used to be. It is a very physical job. Physical penetration testing is a very physical job. So I kind of do a lot less of it. I sort of do about 6 a year to keep my hand in. Everything I say now is going to be like carry on, fucking Sex Scotland. Well, sorry, I swore again. It's a grown-up job. So, so walls, ladders, blah, blah, blah. And I thought what I'd do was talk to you a little bit about what we need to do, really. Because actually, and this isn't probably a very popular opinion, in some ways it's easy, and then in some ways, just because something's simple doesn't mean it's easy. And also, in some ways, we're having to up our game, okay? So there's certain layers of defense within a client, I'm saying. 4, we have times when the perimeter is completely ineffective and you can just waltz in. And then on the inside, the interior is also ineffective. So the internal side is as easy as the external side. It's easy. You tailgate in. Absolutely what Stu said. We can walk around. We can do all of that. What I get more work doing is when the perimeter is actually fairly effective. So memorable occasions, clicky, clicky, shooty, shooty. We've got armed guards. We've got dogs. We've got people who are educated on the outside. Once we get past the outside, in this case, what happens is on the inside, they are completely defenseless. Because what people assume is if they've got a secure perimeter, then you must be okay to be in there. And we rinse them. What I see very rarely is an effective perimeter and internally effective defences. And that's really a big deal, because we really need to be aiming for that last one. And whilst education and awareness and all those things are nice, it's not going to cut it when you've got a sophisticated attack. So I'm just going to talk to you a bit about the type of awareness levels that you're up against. We've got basically unaware, which are the sort of people who will give your password on those calls and just have no clue about what social engineering is or what security is really, all the way through until we have something like an informed majority. These are the people who've gone through the test and done all the clicks, but they're passive when it comes to people on site, that the slightest story is going to cut it and you're going to get through again. What we're looking for is an informed, active majority of people. I don't see it. And, you know, the tests that we do, I hate that word, and I'm going to get onto it in a minute, but the jobs that we perform, the crews we put together, are consistently astounded that we really, very rarely even get to inform majority passive. usually on the interior, inside the walls. You have a few people who know about it. Most people just don't know, or they don't act, or they're too busy. And this is a problem because the threat levels actually range. And again, Ed touched on it, but it ranges from the casual and opportunistic. So a lot of people in the pen testing industry are dealing with casual and opportunistic threats, and I think it ties in with what you're saying. So people who are just playing the percentages, making the calls, looking for whatever they can get. It's not necessarily always financially motivated. Sometimes it's just pure mischief and devilment. But whatever it is, it's kind of fairly straightforward to get through. Next level up will be your targeted but basic planning. So that's some OSINT, some surveillance perhaps, although there's no fucking effort going in the industry a lot of the time to do any surveillance or to really work out what the site's like. So we're not really replicating that criminal attack so much as doing something that's fun. What we tend to deal more in now is when people have targeted and detailed planning. So a proper crew with a proper target, a named target for a reason that we're going to put a crew together to get in against. So we're going to replicate someone who's targeted and has the detailed planning. But increasingly, we're seeing the bottom three. So particularly with critical national infrastructure clients, government clients, actually all of the first three, they're kind of covered, right? So they've ticked the boxes. The fact that they're not really covered, as Ed and Stu have both said, isn't so important. What's important is when we have organised criminal, terrorist or state-sponsored threats performing social engineering as part of a wider job. And that requires us, as the industry, to up our game, right? So it depends on the level that you're in. Do you know what? If I speak like this, can you hear me at the back? Okay, so I'll keep it here, but I'll project, sweetie, okay? So what happens is, my problem with the industry is I see everyone talking about social engineering. They're talking about a really basic level of social engineering, which still gets through, but limits people's ambition, right? Because if I was only tailgating through and making calls and dropping emails, it wouldn't have held my interest, and it wouldn't lead us to the kind of job that what we're teaching just a handful of people every year to come through with us because and not very fit. I need to put people doing the job that I used to do because I am not climbing 42 flights of stairs anymore. Very rare that I would do an active part of the job other than a basic thing on site. So what I thought I'd show you is what it takes to pull off a more sophisticated attack. So I think it leads quite nicely in from what Stu and what Ed was saying, because if you can get past with those easy calls, I want you to imagine what you can do if you put this level of effort and discipline into a job. So I have 5 areas that we teach.
You can drop the blank now.
I can drop it now.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So we have 5 areas that we teach, okay? And the first is strategic intelligence, followed by tactical. I give some advanced communications training, some non-verbal communication training, and then there's the psychology that underpins everything. And I'll talk to you about just some of the things that we would do, that I would do with a crew to pull off a job that replicates an organised, funded attack, as opposed to something that was sort of a lesser, like awareness training type of attack. So let's look at strategic first. You'll be familiar with some of this stuff because it's absolutely the same type of thing that you spoke about. But we'd be looking at proper, as in physical, surveillance of a site. So we are looking at who comes and goes backwards and forwards, We're looking at who hangs out with who. We're certainly looking at things like how they celebrate and where they celebrate, how they punish as well, so how they punish transgressions. I'm also looking for in-groups within the company, little cliques, the smoking groups, those types of things. We do a lot of reconnaissance and surveillance to start to build up a funnel of intelligence. And that funnel of information will start at the company level, at the target level. So where are they in their space? Almost like a business school exercise, right? So I'm looking at who they compete with, are they sad, you know, are they miserable, is there redundancies, what are the people actually feeling in that organisation? And you'll see why it's so important later on. But basically, to change someone's mind, you have to somewhat be in it. And you can only do it if you can understand the macro environment that they're operating in. So what we do is we have a funnel of information from the industry to the target level, to the group level, and then to individual level. So the profiling, it gets very big, you know, and that wall of information becomes very granular. Once we have that, we'll start to profile and do some mapping. What you need, apart from data, is a story. So data on its own doesn't really work in this job. What we need is the stories. We need to pull what's behind that data so that we can see the things that people fear and the things that they are working towards. I am ideally looking for the last thing that they give up. Sorry, the shit gets dark. There's supposed to be a fucking laugh there. Jesus. So then what we do is we put together the appropriate crew. So I would be looking at different people to play different roles. Again, this is not every job that we do. These are the higher level jobs, the jobs that we really need to be sure that we succeed. So we'll be looking at certainly a couple of technical people, specialists depending on what our attack's going to look like, but also some physical specialists. As I say, the youth, people who are fitter than I am, who are going to climb the stairs, are going to let us in, and we're looking probably for at least 1 to 2 social engineers. It could be me, it could be someone that we've brought in, depends on the type of company. So we were looking at a company in London that were a PR company. They were on the riverbank, and they're all like, their Slack channels were hilarious. It was all about what smoothies they liked and the best way to cook kale and all this shit, right? And I'm not going to fit in that organisation, right? Because I'm going to rock up and just not look like I cycle in every day or whatever. So we use different people for different things. And we plan it and we rehearse it. Now typically, we'll hire somewhere near the site and we'll live there. So we'll live as a team for a couple of days at least, bringing back the data, bringing back the surveillance information, the photographs, analysing the site. Mostly so that we get used to each other and we've got our own language. And once that pre-planning and rehearsal is done, we'll assign roles, names, pretexts, and any approaches, and we'll plan that site, that exit strategy, and at least one plan B. Often that's a disposable B team that we will send in first with the full intention that they get caught. If they get caught, then we send in another team, and at that point all the attention's on the wrong place. And I'll talk to you about that psychologically as well. I want to talk to you about what you need if you're going to be on site in the belly of the beast, inside someone that's hired you to get through. We call this tactical intelligence. What have you got on the ground when everything goes wrong, right? What have you got when you come face to face with the humans in organisations? Because I'm going to tell you that there's characters that you meet on these tests. You'll always meet someone who notices you but's too busy to report it. You usually will meet a client who kind of goes and just makes you in front of everyone straight away. You'll meet people who kind of know that you're there, but they want to talk to you, and I found myself like running away quite a lot of the times. They're following me. But most of all, the quality that you need is flexibility, right? You have to have everything as planned. We plan it to like minute details. It's highly funded. These are expensive tests. But we need the flexibility that when something goes wrong on the ground, we can all change and flip to different plans or on our feet. And that requires focus, and the biggest skill, I think, is improvisation. And I'm sure Stu's saying the same thing. You have to be able to improvise with what the situation presents to you and what you can find, what you can put your hand on whilst you're on the site, right? the number of times that we've known for sure that door ABC is never locked, or room C is always empty, gone in and it's locked or it's occupied. It's the improvisation that's really important. We have to understand about how to distract, and that people they have what we call inattentional blindness. In other words, if something's there all the time, or if it looks like it fits in, then 9 times out of 10, and that 1 out of 10 is the one that matters, but 9 times out of 10, what they'll do is they'll carry on, they'll ignore it, they won't see it. So what we do is do basic training in how we can make sure that we're not noticed, and how we can make sure that the attention is somewhere other than where the job is carrying out. So it requires team coordination, personal coordination, discipline. It also requires decision-making skills, because on the ground there's certain things you have to make a call, and it's all about the timing, it's about reading the space and the environment, about feeling, we call it atmospherics, feeling when something changes. There's like things that move in the air, particularly when someone said, they think there's people on site that shouldn't be on site, and suddenly things get quiet and things sort of cool down a little bit. We need to be able to judge it, and we judge it usually on 3 pieces of information. So 3 things, 3 signals is the signal that we need to pull back or go to plan B or move our attack. And to do that, what you need to do, and this is where the surveillance comes in, is you need to understand that what we call the natural line of drift. So in any organisation, there is an ebb and flow of people, there's an ebb and flow of activity, there's an ebb and flow of noise, and what we need to do is understand, 1, when that dips, and if that's a normal dip, or if it's dipped for another reason, but 2, where people go when they're hacking their own company, right? So what happens is, very often I don't need to work out where we break in, because the people who work there are already doing it. They're avoiding the long way round, they find the natural line of drift and they walk that path instead. So we want to know where that is, because that's the path we'll follow if we get caught. So that's strategic, prior, tactical on the job. And then I just thought I'd give you some other things that we find useful. When you're talking to or writing to the humans, advanced communication skills are very important, because what you want to be is in control. Even if the impression that you're giving is that you're helpless or scatty, or you need something doing for you, you don't know what to do, or you've done something wrong, we need conversation management. And it's a real skill to be able to play a conversation, to be able to bring someone down so they're comfortable about what they're talking about, bring them up to a heightened emotion, for example, and then pull them back down again. Because what you want to do is put them in a state where they do or say what you want them to say. And particularly in the case of emotional hijacking, which I'll talk to you in a minute, what we're interested in is heightening their emotional state so their decision making goes right down, and then in that state giving them a call to action that is their ticket out of that state. And you do it through the way that you speak. And as you can see, it's not an easy thing to learn. It takes a long time to learn that. You need to learn questioning techniques, because there's lots of types of questioning. We call it intensive interview. We're not allowed to call it interrogation anymore. And we don't. It's intensive interview, right? So what do I need them to expand at this point, or do I need to shut them down and confirm something? Right? Do I actually want a closed question, or do I want to throw information out? The way that you ask the questions is not just an open question. There's different types. The way you ask the question will give you the information you require. And that means you have to be able to listen really carefully. And I'm telling you that when you're on site, when you're inside someone else's building, when you're not meant to be there, it's really difficult to calm the head chatter. Because your nerves are up, and because you're in this heightened state of awareness, well, hopefully we're in this heightened state of awareness. I did know one person who was pissed on a pen test who never worked with me again, but they're not in that heightened state of awareness at that point, but we're supposed to be, and in the heightened state, hard to listen because you've got your own script. So we want to listen, we want to be able to read the situation, and actually we want to be able to put in some elements of conversational hypnosis. So, embedded commands. The difference between saying, is that your answer, or is that the answer now? and be able to create something called a yes set that gets people in a positive frame of mind. That means eventually they just open the door. And it's actually conversational hypnosis. But again, you don't do it on the fly. You can't just improvise it. You need to know what you're doing first. And that means understanding a little bit about the psychology of and the conversations around transactional analysis. Does this person want to be led, or is this person desperate to correct me? And when we know those things and the roles people are playing in the moment, then those people basically are puppets. Now that's pretty dark, right? Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling you what we do. What you do with it is up to you. So then, some non-verbal stuff as well, always useful. Mostly, but for not the reasons that you think. What I'm interested in particularly is people's stance and their gait. Mostly because, and particularly with males, it's quite difficult because in an office environment, for example, most people will be wearing the same clothes. And you might not, you might have a picture or whatever, but they'll more or less be in a business suit or like a uniform for their business. So what we need is something that's another indicator that it's the right person. So what we try and do, and it's part of the surveillance before, people's walk, their gait, is a big indicator. And if we can pin the gait on someone, we know it's the right individual. We also know from the way they stand, the way they hold themselves, their level of confidence in the situation. That's the baseline we measure against, and then from that baseline, when something changes, then we start to read that data differently and operate within the situation. I'm also interested in looking at a group and being able to identify leaders and alphas within a group. Because then I know that if I can get the alpha to follow, for example, then the rest of the group will defer. So sometimes, unfortunately, it's not one-on-one. Often it's one on a few, and we need to be able to identify who that is quickly. And what I'll give you that is the non-verbal indicators, which you could have won, but we don't have enough time because they overran.
Stu overran.
Also something called proxemics, which is the use of personal space, of how to really make someone very uncomfortable by getting too close. And looking at the way people stand. I can usually tell by looking at people if someone's having an affair. And sometimes it comes out as well, and other times I choose to hold it back because perhaps it's not useful to say it. But all those things are things that are revealing themselves while you're on the job, while you're with the humans, right? And then it's the power of touch, the haptics, and any intention cues that people have. So I'm looking when someone's stress level's very high, and what their feet are telling me that they're interested in doing, what their stance is telling me they're interested in doing, basic physiological needs as well. So physiologically, there are indicators we all have of stress. Pretty much, if you're human, this is a commonality. A bit like facial expressions, there are certain things that if you're just a human being, you react in a certain way. So what we're looking for very often is whether we can up that stress level with the full intention of being able to either turn off the pressure or raise the pressure higher, depending on the outcome that we're after with the individual. So, a little bit of psychology, which is popular these days. There's lots of different psychology involved in it. I would say particularly to look at cognitive biases, particularly social cognitive biases. Things like there are all these different things, glitches in the brain that humans just do to a greater or lesser extent. Things like, you may have heard of things like the Dunning-Kruger effect, or there's something called defamation professional, which is the idea that we do things a certain way around here. So if you're trying to blend, you want to know what that defamation professional is like within that organisation. I gave a talk on it one time, the guy said I didn't read it on the notes. And I said, why? And he said, because in our organisation, we never print on the back. That's defamation professional. And if you think that you're not subject to it, you are. That's called the bias blind spot. We all are. And your brain can be messed with. So what we're interested in is how that's operating within the business, right? Because what we want to be sure is that when we make that move, they definitely click on the link. They definitely give us the information we need. They definitely let us through. We are looking to be in and out, absolute maximum 90 minutes. Absolute maximum. Preferably a lot less. So we need to be sure when we make the move. I look at the cultural rules, the way the business operates, again, blame and things like that come into that, the way people are too scared, right, of doing something, of upsetting a customer than actually following secure behaviour, but particularly how they're learning and how they're evolving as a group, and whether there's an in-group bias, for example, within the security team. There always is. Because if that's there, we can play on that as well. Don't forget that very often it's actually the technical and security team that are the target in these type of heists. So we know that we're dealing with people who are going to be on their guard, preferably, and should have some indication of the social engineering if it's appearing. I kind of don't even really like calling it social engineering in some ways anymore, or even a pen test. It seems to be, what I'm talking about seems to be slightly different, at least. And then the last one under psychology is those motivational drivers. And as I say, it gets a bit dark. Because when we're at the individual level, what I'm really looking for is what people most aspire to, are chasing, or the goal that they are pursuing in the moment, then in the medium to long term. But then also the thing that they fear, the thing that they would least like to happen. And ideally will link their behaviour to that which they least like. So what we're looking at is an absolute guarantee that that person's going to do as they're told. Shit gets dark. No laugh. Supposed to laugh, supposed to be funny. So, taking us where? Oops. I think we just skipped a slide. So what I would say is that I kind of go away from pen test. I'm talking about a simulated attack on a funded, motivated scale. The con that I've just described to you, the methodology that we do, is not really that common in the industry, right? It's expensive, it requires skills and a team. It's the higher level stuff for targets that really think that they're the subject of those higher levels of threat, right? And even in that case, even if that's something, because really what I want to do is recruit you all into doing some of this, into thinking about it a bit more. But I'd say that all that is hard work. It's taken years for me to build that up. My con that we run is not your con, right? You do not have to go through all of this that I've just explained briefly to you to pull off social engineering, right? It's just helpful skills if you're going to do it seriously. But more to the point, if you're going to defend against it, right? Because what I need to say, if we've got that team, I kind of hate it, but I really like it if they do get stopped. If the security team and the people are aware not just of that first and second layer, but of these deeper techniques that we're deploying. And there's just some of this stuff, and yeah, I'll talk more about it. In 2019, there's a lot of stuff coming. We're going to talk a lot about it, put tutorials out. And as I say, we are going to train about half a dozen people. But what I would say aside from it is, it's a cry out really for professionalism within the industry, right? And it's absolutely not to cry what Ed or Stu said, right? But to do something really, really well, you've got to up your game, right? You need to be telling people that there is lots of elements to social engineering, and that the basics stop so many of them. But a funded, targeted and organised attack needs you, people in the industry, to up our game, be more aware of it. And what I see an awful lot of, I see a lot of chatter on Twitter, and I see it on the blogs and on some of the forums, is this kind of, oh well, it's quite easy to do it. We only need to, put on a winning smile, and then what happens is we sort of get the free pizza, we get the beer, we get the upgrades, and that's true, and it will hit a lot of your users, and Ed's absolutely right. A lot of the threats out there, 70% or whatever he said, all statistics made up on the spot anyway, 70% of them are dead straightforward and simple, and people are just having a crack at you. But this industry actually has the potential to do more than that. It's the potential to actually defend against the way the technology is going. And it starts with the people, and it kind of ends with the people. And then you people have the tech skills in between. And there's good news, now people are talking about it. I would suggest that the perimeter security is getting better. You know, we are struggling more. You know, even my physical, I have a gang of physical infiltration specialists, or PISS as the acronym, because they take the, you know, yeah. So, and even they are starting to struggle with the, you know, the level of just fences and locks and security, and that's one thing, and that's a good thing. I also would say that thanks to people like Stu, and thanks to like some of the talks in the industry about this, the fact that you're all here, awareness is growing, you know, amongst the users, or whatever we want to call our colleagues, actually, the people we work with. There is a level of awareness because of government campaigns and all this about passwords and fraud. All of that's good because it feeds in. And Stu's absolutely right, you know, you create them champions, bring them in, get them, because if at that level is taken care of, then when it's the bigger levels, and the amount of money that is offered to hack some of the companies that are represented today, and it comes to these talks, to put a team like mine on it is insane. You know, people generally are more engaged. We are challenged a bit more, you know, at that level. And I do think the firms are addressing that blame culture, I do. The problem that we've got is that we're still not really training people at the highest level of social engineering. We're not really, there is no, as I say, we're going to do a little bit of, I'll only do a few people because it's a tough course, but we're not training you. We're not training people to do it on the security side at the level it needs to be. That set of 5 skills, I'm only touching the surface of what I think it takes to really be really excellent at it. And I'm sure there's people in the room who are A, interested, and B, great at it, better than me. So the advice is, you need to take a lot of what you hear about this topic in the industry with a massive pinch of salt, right? It's a sexy topic, people like to talk about it, people talk about it, have never done it. You shouldn't let, if someone has never so much as stolen a Mars bar, they don't know about social engineering. They shouldn't be telling you and patronising you about it. You've got to beware of the snake oil, beware of presentations full of filler and false gods in this industry. You have to maintain professionalism and integrity. See it as a career, not just as a fries on the side to whatever you're doing on the magic boxes that I have no clue about, and which I'm sure you can only, right? But it's not fries on the side. So that means that your work ethic, if you genuinely want to defend against this type of thing at this level, needs to be insane. Because the people who are putting crews up against the businesses, the people, when we do it, our work ethic's insane. I take it extremely seriously, it's extremely well paid, and we don't fail. And we don't fail because we don't stop. It's the persistence, right? And that's the thing. Have that work ethic and up the skill set, because someone, show me a technical person who's got epic social engineering skills, and I'll show you the CEO, right? I'll show you the next bloody .com billionaire, right? You need both of these things, because what's up against you is people who are recruited for both sets of skills. So skill up, right? You can do. I was mostly self-taught. You can do it, but you have to put your head down. I'm just looking at the youth in the audience, who has the energy to do it. But I would suggest that's what needs to happen, right? Because everything has changed. So whereas some things have stayed exactly the same, people will click on the link, you know, you'll get the phishing emails that play the percentages and see how many people click on it. Some of that stayed the same, but what's changed is the difference between the lower level stuff and the really high level stuff, the stuff that's by organised crime and higher on the threat levels, is huge. It's a massive gap. There aren't enough people out there who can defend against that really high level stuff. And honestly, that is the exciting stuff. I mean, yes, I've fallen off a few roofs. Yes, I've been chased by a dog. Yes, sometimes it's very stressful. But that's the exciting part of it. And that's the stuff that really changes the fortunes of us all. Because we're up against the worst people in the world at that point, do you understand? So, walls then. Defend your walls. Be they digital, be they physical, especially psychological. Defend your walls within your businesses and within your industry against the people who are only interested in the ladders. Right? It's a call to action for people who can do it. It's needed. And it's not just about smiles and pizza, would that it was. You guys eat a lot of pizza. I realise it's a huge incentive. There's like 20 boxes of pizza there. There's nothing. Anyway, because if you are in security, and particularly on the cyber side of it, you have to be two things. You have to be the sword and the shield. Right? Because the people that you're protecting have nothing without that. Once we're inside, they are naked without it. So, all I would say is, I think that what you guys do is awesome. I think the tech is a weapon, right? And you might think, oh, it's a bit much, swords and shields and everything. Well, I was never one for understatement. But remember, you hold that door. You're the ones that do it, not them. Help them to be as good as they can be, but it's you. Right? Your job. Do it. Thanks for listening.
Guys, we're struggling for time. Thank you so much for our speakers. Thank you for all of you for coming. You've continued to support this meetup, and it's incredible every time we do it. I just want to bring Max on stage from Product Forge, who do the streaming for us. They do this for free. We don't pay anything for this, so come say a few words.
Just very quickly, folks, a little bit about Product Forge. We are a community of entrepreneurs that help individuals and organizations develop their ideas and build enduring products. And we do that with some kind of consulting work, working with teams, working with individuals in the lead up to open hackathons. We've got 2 hackathons coming up at the beginning of 2019 that we're really excited about. The one that we're really, really excited about is the Digital Health Product Forge. It's 4 days going from idea all the way through to a 6-minute pitch with a functioning digital prototype. There'll be health professionals there, developers, engineers, data scientists, designers, all working in teams to develop these really cool digital health products. There's obviously a number of ways that security and health data overlap, and security with health data is obviously very, very important, as our partners at NHS continue to tell us, which is great. So if you're interested in coming along to that event, please come and say hello. I'll be packing up and I'll be around for a few more minutes. We're also running a History and Heritage Product Forge in March. Not entirely sure how security is involved in the history and heritage sector, but if anyone knows, it'd be really interesting to kind of figure out how we can tie those 2 things together. Great, thanks Stu.
Mackenzie, Claire, and Matt, and the team here who provide this space and the beer and the pizza. Thank you. Networking at Brewdog, if you want to come along, we're great to share a drink with you. Thank you again. Thanks to our speakers.